When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Finish your fantasy lineup?
No, but I'm joining this paid group chat with insider info.
Dude, seriously? Forward it to me. Security alert from McAfee. That group's as legit as that knockoff jersey you're wearing.
McAfee's scam detector is available in all McAfee plans for as little as $39.99 for your first year. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hello everyone, it's Gav, and before we begin, I want to let you know that this episode of How Are the Podcast is sponsored by LiveScoreBet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland FC. And if you're looking to get started, LiveScoreBet have got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. All you have to do is bet £10 on sports and you get £30 in free bets. It's as simple as that. So, if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with LiveScoreBet, the home of total betting. This offer is available to new members only, and you need to put £10 or more on a bet on sports within 14 days of opening your account. Free bets are valid for 7 days, £20 to use on Sportsbook, £10 on Bet Builder. T's and C's and deposit exclusions apply. Bet responsibly, over 18s only. Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and we are sponsored by LiveScoreBet today, and you join us just ahead of the Leeds game at the Stadium of Light just after Christmas. We are recording this a little bit early because, you know, we don't want to be sitting around on Christmas Day thinking about things to record. So we are a couple of days ahead on this one, but it's fine. We haven't got any game on Boxing Day, so we can relax over Christmas. Today, I am joined by Conor McGilligan from the One Leeds YouTube channel, who I'm sure quite a few of you might be aware of because we had quite a lot of feedback on this one when I put the feeling out there to see if Conor would come on the show. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, feedback. Oh god, yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. I've got a second channel and I speak about you guys quite a bit as well. I've got some family in Sacriston, so I've got a bit of a soft spot for you lot up there as well. So.
Nice. Yes, I did see that. How's that all going then? Is it keeping you busy, the two channels?
It is, mate. Yeah, it's no easy feat, to be honest with you. It's trying to just. I didn't think anybody would be bothered about what I had to say really about any of the clubs. So it's quite nice. Some people actually listening in. So y'all. So I give you all a lot of bit of compliments, and you've had a good season, and all this sort of stuff. I get some Sunderland fans over there, which is quite nice as well.
Yeah, it's been well, as you know, it's been an unbelievable season for us. But you know, you look at the league table. And Leeds sitting in 16th place, 6 points clear of West Ham in 18th. That's got to be pleasing, sitting at Christmas in that position.
Yeah, it's a weird one, mate, when it comes to obviously us two. As I was in, obviously because of the sort of family ties and stuff like that, I was obviously buzzing that you went up. But at the same time, as soon as you went up, I thought, oh no. I thought, this is good. This has suddenly got a lot harder because obviously you kind of had the idea of what Sheffield United were going to do. We've seen the blueprint. Whereas with you guys, obviously, we know with KLD, etc., the recruitment's been pretty spot on for however many years now. And you guys have just been a growing prospect. So we've just kind of been looking up at you, really. And but from a Leeds perspective, it's okay. He's changed formation, which has been key at this moment in time. And I know it's been blown up. Now you've seen Carragher and everybody speaking about Neville and all this sort of stuff. But this is what Leeds fans were asking for 2 or 3 months ago. The squad was designed to replicate something. It's not really to replicate, to be honest, to see something maybe a little bit different in terms of what the Premier League, you need to respect the Premier League in terms of the physicality, the athleticism. And I think teams have come up and struggled to do that. You know, you've seen like Burnley with Vincent Kompany and Southampton with Russell Martin, where they're just trying to play out from the back and they've struggled. You need to vary up your play and respect the division that you're in. And we weren't doing that for periods of time in the Premier League, and we were getting killed really in transition. So he's actually moved to a 3-5-2 now. And I'll be honest, Gav, we look like a completely different team. We look very effective. And I think Palace the other night sort of amplified that really.
What's been the catalyst for that then? For him to turn around and go, actually, the way I like to play maybe isn't best for this group of players? Because managers can be quite stubborn, can't they? It's often to their detriment. You know, he could have lost his job, you know, by being ridiculously stubborn. Is it that threat of potentially losing his job that caused him to change, do you think?
I think it is, Gav. Yeah, you look at the club size. I mean, obviously, I'm just comparing Sunderland and Leeds as well here. Like the club sizes, the noise gets so loud. So he was effectively, I don't think he was told, but the remit was out there that if he doesn't get something against Liverpool and Chelsea, then he's going to lose his job effectively. And it's quite strange, actually. There was still media reports after we went out and beat Chelsea 3-1 at Ellen Road. They were still saying he has to get something against Liverpool. So there was a lot of pressure put on him, and I think if that hadn't been put on him, maybe we'd have seen a similar style of play. But we're just getting killed, man. I mean, you see with Reggie Lebreeze, you know, there's a pragmatism, there's difference in game in terms of the in-game management and different formations, different strategies for different opponents. We were doing the same thing consistently, and we were getting it. We played Forest, played Brighton, Villa. We were playing these teams and just getting caught every single time doing the same thing, same mistake. So the blueprint was there. And if he hadn't have changed, Leeds would have been, I think, would have been cut adrift right now. I think would have been cut adrift. So he needed to do it. And it's kind of just respecting what your recruitment was, really, I think.
Because I remember back in the summer, there was a lot of talk about him losing his job then. Like he got the team promoted with an unbelievable amount of points, an outstanding defensive record. Yet there was all this talk about the 49ers wanting to change in management and do something different with Daniel Farke. But he kept his job. He's still there. He's still in position. But is he always under threat? Has it always just felt like Daniel Farke could be a couple of games away from getting sat and replaced?
Yeah, it's a funny one because we're all a little bit like, I mean, Enzo Maresca, when we played Chelsea, effectively came out and said, Daniel Farke doesn't really change formation, because he was asked about Leeds switching to a 3-5-2 and he said, look, we don't really, we know Leeds play like a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, which is kind of the same thing really. And he said they don't really change. And it was damning as such, because you were thinking, God, these Premier League managers just know what we're going to do. They know what team we're going to put out, et cetera, et cetera. And I think
That's funny you say that, but sorry, cut in there. That's funny you say that, because when we beat Chelsea, Enzo Maresca came out after the game and said, we didn't expect Sunderland to play like that. It was damning from his perspective to hear a manager turn around and go, I didn't see that coming, because we went to a 5 at the back. But yeah, anyways, that was just interesting. It was there.
No, we technically did the same as well. So, but it's quite interesting, because obviously we won the league, but we had you remember that the Leeds squad was a joke. It was an absolute joke at that level. I think it's probably one of, if maybe Villa and Newcastle squads down there have been as good caliber wise, but you know, it was ridiculous. I mean, we could have rotations of like Nonto and Ramazani, then we'd have James and Solomon, you know, like in the championship of rotations whenever we wanted. So it was very good, but obviously we got into the summer months and I don't think they've been fully convinced on him, Gab, to be honest with you, because of his former record in the Premier League, and they're data-led, similar to your recruitment and your data-led sort of framework at Sunderland. And they were basically just looking at what's happened before and thinking, well, actually, we're going to move away from that now, and we're going to get someone in who might acclimatise to the Premier League a little bit more and adapt, because he'd shown no adaptation before. And the example against you boys, when Ilan Meslier decided to just trip over the ball in the last minute, which was fantastic. I wasn't
going to mention that.
then he didn't take him out. And it's just, it was the stubbornness, you see, like you were just talking about with like ego-driven managers. And I think they were worried about his pragmatism, his adaptation. But they basically, which it's not great this, but it felt very like reactive, because the fan base turned and were like, nah, do not sack him. I think there was some of us who were like, we can understand it, but the majority were thinking, no, you can't do that. He's just won the division, etc., etc. And they kind of reacted to that. It felt like they put like a little bit of a fan piece out, to the journalists and all this sort of stuff. And then they got the reaction of the fans, and then the fans were all like, nah, you can't do that. So then they buckled a bit, it felt.
Yeah, he's a really likable person, Daniel Farke, but I can understand maybe the skepticism to maybe think, well, is he the man to lead a team into the Premier League, given he got Norwich relegated twice? But his record of promotions is so good that at some point he has to get it right in the Premier League, you feel? I just think, the Premier League, yes, it's a tough division, and obviously he's failed at that level before, but also you learn as a coach, don't you? You find out, you find out new things about yourself. When you get promoted the next time, maybe you don't do the same things that you did the last time you were there. So I kind of understand why you would stick by him, especially when it's a group of players who clearly had played for him in the division below. But has he had to change much in terms of the way you played from last season? Obviously, I remember Leeds being a very solid team in the Championship. Obviously, Burnley broke the record for the defence, but Leeds weren't far behind, right? What was it, something like crazy, like 16 goals conceded all season? I might be wrong with that, but it wasn't. It wasn't much, was it?
No, you're not wrong, mate. Well, the issue was, and this is genuinely what it was the goalkeeper, and he wouldn't drop him.
Yeah.
The defence was brilliant. It was a very, very good defence. I mean, it's not that different right now. I think the difference is Firpo for Goodmanson, really, and obviously we've gone to a back five and brought in Jakobio, but the four at the start of the season, it's Bogle, it's Strauch, it's Rodon, it's very similar. So a lot of it was, the goalkeeper's statistics were absolutely abhorrently bad. The prevented goals were in the minuses. It was just not representative of a goalkeeper who, was at the back for a team leading the charge, really. So that was the big issue. I think the defence was pretty good. I think chances prevented Leeds were beyond Burnley, actually. But yeah, and we kind of had it the other end as well. So it was a weird one, because you kind of thought to yourself, if he comes in and we're a pretty team, we play out from the back, but we're so dominant in every single game in the Championship, most of the games anyway. It was we bossed every single game. So the players naturally got used to that. So obviously coming up to the Premier League, you're just against the ball, aren't you? So it's like, can he switch away from that? Because he didn't at Norwich. He's not done it at Norwich before. He wanted to play a similar style of football, similar formation. And it wasn't successful even when he did try and adapt in the Premier League. I mean, he went to a 3 at the back at Stamford Bridge for Norwich and got beat 7-0. So then he went straight back to the 4-2-3-1. So you were, it's, to be honest, Gav, I am anyway. I'm still thinking to myself, don't go back. Stay where you are. This is working, because you know what managers' egos can be like at points. So I'm just hoping he sticks with it. The performances are there at this moment in time. And like I said, mate, I think if we go back to what we were, Leeds are in a little bit of trouble, I think.
What would you say the big differences then between, because you were there 2 years ago, right? You were in the Premier League 2 years ago, so it's not the gap Sunderland have had where we've not been in the Premier League for 8 or 9 seasons. You're pretty fresh out the Premier League, but we've heard from our sporting director. There was a piece on ESPN this week interviewing the sporting director, Christian Speakman, talking about how when we got promoted, the club looked at all the data on the teams who'd been relegated over the couple of seasons before and tried to work out what they got wrong. What would you say were the big differences between sort of then 2 years ago when Leeds went down and now, and how you're doing a lot better? So you've obviously changed something in that kind of approach to the Premier League.
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's probably respecting the division a little bit more, like recruiting for the desired requirements, really, like I was saying, when it comes to, just raw physicality and athleticism. I was so surprised, Gav, when we went up there last time. I always sort of tell this story. I remember being at Ellen Road, and I remember Harry Kane having like 4 shots. One of them whistled over the bar, the other cannoned off the crossbar, the other cannoned off the post, and the other one went in. And it was like, at that point, you were going, wow, and we'd already been in a couple of years anyway, but it's like, if you switch off for a second, and what we did basically, and we obviously finished 9th, stayed up with Bielsa, and then we recruited. But, and this is a lesson for us both, Leeds stood still. So they brought in, I think, Dan James that window, Junior Firpo, and a backup keeper called Christopher Klaassen. That was it. So Leeds then went into the following season, and it didn't quite work out with Bielsa. Bielsa wanted a whole new team. The players were effectively not reacting to him anymore. Physically, they died under Bielsa at that point. we were basically Rafinha plus 10 at that point, and we just stayed up on the last day of the season. But then it was a raft of new recruits, of which it was a bit sporadic. It didn't really feel clean bringing these players in. It didn't really feel any sort of like that, fill any sort of strategy or anything like that. Bielsa always wanted 2 players for every position. We didn't really have that. There were gaps. I think, to be honest, it was all down to recruitment, and they panicked. I mean, it was when you obviously you lose Bielsa, and I know he kept us up, but you bring in Jesse Marsh, and you think you've got Marcelo Bielsa over here, who is an attacking, wide, fluid, dynamic coach who maybe neglects defensive duties a little bit, and then you've got Jesse Marsh, who's a centralized coach. Talks consistently, in press conferences where you got Bielsa, who never used to speak properly about himself and his philosophies. He's always wanted to put it on the team. Jesse would speak about himself, and then he got sacked, and they brought in Javi Gracia, who's now in the Championship with Watford, and then they brought in, with 4 games to go, Sam Allardyce. It was just chaos. It was chaos off the pitch, and it's chaos on the pitch, really, Gav. And they always say, I do a show on my channel with Ben, called Benjamin Bloom, who's a football podcaster, and Ben was saying, the fish rots from the head down, and that's exactly right. You always see it in football. If you're led from the top, you look at Bloom at Brighton, you look at Ben at Brentford, who've been very, very successful. It's top-down recruitment, which is imperative, and we just didn't have that last time. And it feels like this time, at least, the recruitment's been pretty decent. And they've recruited a certain way. There's a strategy, and it feels, to be fair with Farke, at least they've backed him and they've not panicked. I guess you can look at it that way.
Yeah, maybe just learning from the mistakes. As I say, learning from the mistakes, even though it's not the same kind of ownership group who were in place and the same people running the club. Looking at what they did wrong 2 years previously and going, we can't make them same mistakes. We can't be scattergun with our approach to managers.
I'll tell you what, Gav, to put it in perfect sort of perspective, you just speaking about Speakman, and obviously you got Regis Labrise and the whole hierarchy there. It feels very, very sort of, there's a synergy from the top down, really.
Yeah.
With Leeds, we realised very quickly it was Bielsa. And when Bielsa went, it was, oh no, what now? And it all just came tumbling as you realised how important he was at the club, so...
Yeah, I was having this conversation with some of my mates at the weekend who I was out with, who are Newcastle fans, because obviously at the minute, it seems pretty good there because they're in the Champions League, they've just won a trophy, but Eddie Howe runs everything from recruitment to the team selection, the training every day. He does everything.
Dangerous.
And I was saying to them, because a lot of them want rid of him, and I'm saying, well, Eddie Howe goes, your whole sort of structure at your football club is going to drastically change. And you do have to kind of future-proof yourself with that. I just think that's the way it should be done now in football. Gone are the days where, you mentioned it before, but a Sam Allardyce gets full control over a club, or like I say, even now, Eddie Howe, it's probably not the right approach for the long term, is it? And like clubs like ours, like yours, who've been through relegations and know what it's like to struggle, they should learn from the mistakes, really, shouldn't they? And a lot of clubs don't, which is when, you look at, for instance, last year, Southampton coming back up and just trying to do the same things that have got them relegated in the past. And you could go on and on, couldn't you, with all these clubs? I think we actually got a question for our Q&A pod earlier in the week from a Sunderland fan who asked, he did mention Leeds because he was talking about Sunderland, but he said, are we showing teams in the Championship who are fighting for promotion what to do now going forward? And I think that is the case. And I think you look at Burnley, they're going down for me. But I think, Sunderland and Leeds, you look at the league table and you see, Leeds aren't safe, certainly, but a 6-point gap, you are showing teams how to do it and that you can learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The worst thing was, Gab, when they were doing the recruitment and there's the whole Farke bits in the summer, the 49ers had been in a minority shareholder sort of ownership with our. I think it was a majority, obviously minority split. We had a guy called Andrea Radrizzani who ran the club, and so they saw what was going on basically in this Premier League season. And that's why we're all kind of worried when we were going down this sort of rabbit hole at the beginning of the season. It was like, well, they've seen the mistakes. Like, well, why are we repeating it again? Where's the preparation? And obviously people were calling out recruitment. I was one of the ones who was saying there's got to be a system in place for these big, tall, athletic, rangy players to fit into and be successful. So but like you say, it's learning from the mistakes, and when it's in recent memory, it's that's why I think we're all still very anxious, because I respect the division so much, and I mean Leeds were last up. I mean, I was 2003, 2004, and then obviously we've had decades out the Premier League, so then going back into it and the pressure aspect there, and it's quite funny seeing Sunderland now, because I think the obvious thing with Sunderland is top down, as I've just mentioned, mate. It's clearly probably a lot more stringent than what it was at Leeds and Sheffield United. But I remember the season before we finished ninth. I think Sheffield United finished like 8th or 9th as well, and you're just riding this crest of a wave. But it's just building on that consistently, and being able to do that is the biggest task. I remember someone saying to me, I think I was speaking to one of the opposition pods, and they were saying, look, it's that third year which is the toughest, because that's when the pressure really comes. And then there's other people who said the second year is the toughest, because you've survived that first year, and then it's, can you do it again? And it's just constant. But yeah, like I say, mate, I'm hoping. Do you know what's great? It's the fact that we're all, but even Burnley to an extent, we're all giving it a good go. We're all giving it a real good go, and you guys are outstanding at this moment in time. But even with us, since we've switched formation, we're just scoring. We're scoring goals, and we're competing, and we're physical, and we're we're an awful team to play against now. We're an awful team. If you want to look at like how painful it is to play against Leeds right now at this minute, just go watch that Palace game. Just bullied, absolutely bullied. We'll keep the ball out of play, and then we'll just start. It'll be the aerial assault. And then, but to be fair, on the floor, we're all right, because we bring in principles from last season where we're still good on the ball, and we've still got really good ball players in Tanaka, and the ones that you'll know from last season and all this sort of stuff. Tanaka, the conductor, and Stacks come in. He's brilliant on the ball as well. So there's positives there, but yeah, overall, mate, we're doing okay, aren't we? I mean, you lads, but yeah, we're doing all right. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump for a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll chat about Sunday's game.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Welcome back to How Are the Podcast, sponsored by Live Score Bet. And just before the break there, Connor was talking about how Leeds have become a bit of a bully in the Premier League, pushing teams around and making it miserable. Interesting, Connor, because that's exactly how we play. So I'm really intrigued about the approach from both teams to this game, because you'll have seen Sunderland at home this season in particular. We are not a nice team to play against, unbeaten at home all season. Arsenal came to the Stadium of Light and only got a point. We beat Newcastle, of course. We've played very, very well at home this season.
I'm not heard of
even earlier in the season, taking points off West Ham and all the rest of it.
I was about to say, I've not heard anything about that Newcastle win. I've not heard anything about it, mate.
Yeah, we'll not go over old ground. It's old news, No, but the Stadium of Light has become a really tough place to go. So it's interesting to me that you say that about Leeds. I mean, how do you see the sort of game shaping up from that perspective then? Do you think Leeds will come and just do what they've been doing recently? I mean, you look at the form, beat Chelsea 3-1, drew 3-3 with Liverpool, drew with Brentford, beat Palace 4-1. That's a great run of results. So they're going to be coming into this with a bit of confidence and swagger, I would think.
They are, mate. And do you know what it was as well, Gab? I know you just mentioned those results, and obviously we've not lost, but as well, I look at the City game, and it's like two different Leeds. The first half was Leeds just rolling over 4-3-3, as we've just spoken about before, trying to play out from the back and just getting killed. Second half was we probably deserved to get the win in that game. We were the much better side in that second half at the Etihad. So I kind of take it as like almost like 4.5 games, because that's how we've started to just change a little bit. But it's interesting because we will still use a 4-3-3. You know, we'll go for a 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3 because we need to get Willian Yonto involved. So if you get Willian Yonto involved, he can't be used as a wing back. You know, if Dan James is injured at this moment in time, but if you wanted to use Dan James, he can't be used as a wing back. He's a winger. So you do change when you're putting these players on, so it gives him the option. But the base principles now are hit Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And if you've got Lucas Metra up there as well, who's got, I think he's 6th in the division for goals per 90. He's on 4 or 5 goals this season as well. So from a recruitment perspective, 2 free transfers up top are doing really well. I think they've got about 11 goals between, like, you know, altogether. So it's been a pretty good return. But yeah, in terms of the style of play, I don't see it changing that much. If I was to maybe point Sunderland fans to a game of which would maybe emulate, maybe replicate this in a certain way, would be the Brentford game. So obviously we know with Brentford, with Kiyode and with, like, you know, doing the long throws, and you've got Nathan Collins and Thiago in there as well. And they just work on set pieces, don't they? And that's kind of what Keith Andrews, set piece coach, that's kind of their philosophy. Leeds just matched them, and we beat them up really at the same game. And I don't think that'll happen with Sunderland. I think you've got a lot of physical profiles in there which will compete with Leeds. But I think the good thing was you saw against Brentford that on a technical level, we were much better than them, especially in that second half when we grew into it. So I think we can do sort of two sides of the game. The playing on the ground and the possession-laden stuff is what Farke wants us to do, but he kind of knows we have to do the other horrible side of it to stay in the division. So it's kind of a nice mix, really. So it'll be an interesting game. I don't think many Leeds fans, I'd say they won't be optimistic. I think the Palace game has switched a lot of Leeds fans, probably, you know, ideas going into this game, but some of his focus on our away form, which is not good. And, you know, if it was at Ellen Road, I'd be thinking, "Oh, this will be a sort of tasty one," but, you know, under the lights or whatever. But yeah, it might be a little bit different. But, you know, I don't use this as an excuse a lot with Sunderland because I think there's a lot of context behind it. But I am kind of looking at AFCON a little bit, just in terms of disruption, a tiny bit of disruption.
It's fair enough, because you look at the players that we've lost, particularly Ronaldo, you know, Noah Siddiqui, Bertrand Traore, who've all been very, very important for us. But we showed on the weekend against Brighton, you know, that we can cope without them. We've got good players in reserve. The worry, I would say, would be that off the bench we've lost a lot of quality off the bench, right? Because those players have had to step into the team. But generally speaking, you know, the team looks pretty much the same, which is good. I'm happy with that. But I think you mentioned Dominic Calvert-Lewin there, and he's the one I'm really interested in this game, particularly when you consider Dan Ballard and Omar Alderete are very proficient in the air. That can, you know, I haven't seen anybody beat them in the air this season in over 90 minutes. Probably the two most physical defenders in the league. So that, again, is going to be a really interesting battle, because if you're saying get the ball up to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, let him win the headers and stuff, well, if he's got Dan Ballard shadowing over him, it's going to be quite interesting, isn't it?
It is, mate. Yeah, there's battles all over the pitch, really. I mean, so obviously with this back three now, we brought Jacobiel in, who's like the central part of the back three, really. And he has had, I think it's Thiago, Haaland, and Mateta, and it's quite similar probably to Ballard and Alderete.
Even those exact same players.
Yeah, just quiet, not like at any of them. So it's kind of been a bit of a change for us in that respect. DCL is probably the most important signing we've made. He's just the focal point for everything. I've never seen a jump like it. When we initially signed him, because Leeds were heavy on Rodrigo Muniz, so we didn't sign Muniz, and then we went for DCL, or apparently we'd inquired about DCL, went to Muniz, and then DCL became available because he rejected a contract offer that he didn't deem sufficient from Everton. But Anyway, so he came in and stuff like that, but we weren't playing to his style. He was isolated a little bit, but now he's got another body up with him, which can be Noah Okafor, it can be Lucas Mecha. I think the likelihood is Mecha starts, and Mecha's a monster as well. So it all basically, guys, it sounds like it's going to be a minging game because if you've got Ballard and Alderete and you've got DCL and Mecha, I mean, Mecha's 6'4", DCL's 6'3", and I think those two are mirrored as well. So I think it's just going to be battles on the pitch, isn't it? The second ball's who's up for it more. But the key one for me is Xhaka. I think if Xhaka was African, it'd be great. I'd love that, And I do really like Dan Neil. I like Dan Neil a lot. I think he's very underrated as well, and he should be, not for you boys, but he should definitely be playing more minutes. But if Dan Neil was in for this one, let's say, and Xhaka was injured, I'd feel a lot more confident. Xhaka's the annoying one at the minute that I look at, and I think he just dictates everything. Mentality on the ball. He always seems so good as well, which I think he's quite underrated with Xhaka. So the midfield battle is going to be interesting. But I think the one that I'm looking at where I'm really happy he's not there is Siddiqui. Siddiqui, I just think, has just been immense for you boys. So he's just the one. I think Diarra's back, isn't he? But Siddiqui's just the one at the minute that I'm just like, thank goodness he's not there at least.
Yeah, well, Diarra's actually gone back to AFCON now. He had 30 minutes and that was it. That was they called it the end of his rehab. So he looked a bit rusty, which he would after 3.5 months out.
So I thought he'd be staying around, mate. I thought because he's been out for so long, I thought he'd be staying around and just trying to almost.
Yeah, we were hoping that too.
Yeah. I'm surprised at that. I'm really surprised.
Yeah. So he's now with the Senegal team, but Luchurel Gertruides came in Siddiqui's place and was brilliant at Brighton. So we're not too worried. It's good to have so many good options. You know what I mean? But again, though, you're talking about the sort of the battle and it being a minging game. I love that, mate. I absolutely love blood and thunder, big headers, big tackles, and the fans do as well. And I've watched games at Ellen Road this season where sometimes you're a bit like Sunderland in a lot of ways. When there's a big tackle or a header to be won, the crowd cheer almost as loud as they do a shot on goal because it's pleasurable, isn't it, to see your player just ram through someone. So I'm actually. I think for the neutrals, particularly with it being on TV, this one could be quite an interesting game to watch. You mentioned before the away form for Leeds. I mean, I don't know how much that's going to matter, particularly given you're in a decent run. But let's just say it does matter. Are you just looking at this and thinking, I would just like to get out of there with something like a point, or what would represent a good result?
Yeah, I'd take a point, 100%. Yeah. I think last year crippled me. I'll be honest. I was coming back on a flight. I've been taken away by the missus to Hamburg for a couple of nights or whatever. We came back in. I looked at, and so you were top of the table at the time, and I looked at my phone and I thought, 2-2. That's not a bad result or something. To be honest, I thought we were going to get beat. I think we were 4th or 5th at the time. Had a look at what happened, and then my head was on Mars. But yeah, so I think a point at the Stadium of Light is always. It's a tough place to go. It's now probably one of the toughest places to go when you're not playing well. So that Newcastle game, I don't think you played well, but you just wanted it more. There's desire, there's an intensity from Sunderland as well, and you're difficult to beat. You're just really, really tough to beat. Like that Brighton game, as soon as it sort of passed 30, 35 minutes, I thought there's no way they're losing this game. It's just, it's not going to be like a scrappy 1-0 or anything like that. I just thought they're just going to stay in this game. So, I mean, the only game I thought, which I've watched with Sunderland so far, was probably the Man United game where I thought you were just completely off it. So, yeah, going to the Stadium of Light, mate, I think, I'd take a point. I think there's probably Leeds fans looking at the fixtures that we've got coming up. We've got, I'm not able to swear on this time.
I've actually got them here. You can swear all you want. Yeah, you go for it.
We've got the Dirty Bastards on the 4th. So we've got those on the 4th. Then we've got your Dirty Bastards after those. So we've got Newcastle. So yeah, so it's sort of 3 or 4 games which are really tough there. Then we go into Fulham and Everton. But it's kind of like the new look Leeds. I don't know what I'm expecting, to be honest. Like Man United.
I know what you mean.
Man United at home, I'm like, if you can make it rough and you can really get in the faces, and I'm just like, you might nick something there. So in answer to your question, mate, yeah, I'd take a point, but it's kind of a weird one because you go into England and you're thinking it's going to be extremely tough. But if we can just nick a 1-0 and just get battered and just get out of there, and then go into Man United, Who knows? But it's probably unlikely.
It sounds like you're in a similar headspace to our fans, because we're so confident at the minute that you look at everything and you go, well, why not? You know, we did a Q&A the other day, and somebody, I don't know if you know this, but our owner's best friend is Ousmane Dembele. So Kieran Louis-Dreyfus' best friend is Ousmane Dembele, the Ballon d'Or winner, right? We had a question from someone going, at what point do you start thinking about that being a possibility at some point? And we were sitting there going, come on. Then by the end of the chat, after 5 minutes, we were going, you know, if we qualify for the Champions League somehow, you start talking yourself into things.
You have to. Was it like Fermin Lopez? That was one of them, wasn't it? That was one of the rumours. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. We're being linked with some crazy players, and honestly, when you know how ambitious our owner is, the fact we can spend money and where we are on the table, and then you managed to sign Granit Xhaka when we were the 4th place team the season before in the Championship. You sit down, you go, you know what? Why not? Like, dream like ridiculously. For me, I would never in my wildest dreams have imagined Sunderland would sign a player that good. So you do, don't you? When you're in a good run of form like you are, you start looking at every game and thinking, we can win that. There's no reason why we can't go away to Liverpool, why we can't go away to Newcastle and pick points up. That's kind of how things work.
I think your recruitment was on, and obviously we were kind of hampered a little bit by PSR, but your recruitment was incredible, and it's just every single position, really. It doesn't feel like you're ever falling on like a Dennis Sirkin or a Dan Neil or a Chris Rigg. You're not really doing it anymore because you've recruited so well. Like you just mentioned there, like Siddiqui goes or Diarra goes, like Gertruda comes in. Do you know what I mean? And you kind of look at that and you're thinking that is just, it's insane recruitment, like everywhere. And mate, it's been so impressive, and you've kind of you've shook the mold up, really. You have, because like I said, when teams have come up before, it's kind of like lightning in a bottle, and then they'll build 2, 3, 4 seasons, later a little bit. And you forget even when like Brighton came up, they finished like 16th, like 5 years on the bounce. And it feels like when you're looking at Sunderland now, it's not to get too excited, but I'm just more looking at the depth you brought in the profiles and the caliber that you brought in. And like you said, the notoriety of some of these players, Diarra, Strasbourg, like we were interested in him, Xhaka, Siddiqui, we were interested in him as well. But it's just the depth. Brian Broby, another one. It's just the depth across every single position is what's been so impressive with Sunderland, I think. So yeah, it's feet on the ground stuff, of course, but you got to be excited as a football fan, haven't you, when you see stuff like this?
That's it. Well, you've said you'd take a point. Is that kind of how you see the game going? Like, if you're being honest from your heart, what you thinking about this game in terms of where it plays out?
Yeah. Strangely, yeah. I either see maybe I'm a bit of a pessimist anyway, so I'm probably looking at it. It'll be tight. It'll be really tight. I think it'd either be a 2-1 Sunderland, or it might be another 2-2, but we might get out of there with a point maybe. But our defence is just, it's strange because you kind of look at the games and you think, we're still conceding goals, all this sort of stuff, but they've just been a bit freakish, some of the goals. But overall, we've just really competed well, and we've got, it just feels like we're ticking at this moment in time, and we're kind of riding that crest of a wave at this moment in time. And I thought we were going to get down to Brentford, get beaten 3 or 4. I think they had the 3rd, 4th best home form at that point, and we put a real beating down on them. And we obviously, it was only 1-1, but we should have got out there with a lot more. Palace, obviously, the Palace thing was slightly annoying. They all came out and said, we've got Europe and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, you made 10 changes. You've got the ability to make 10 changes. So I'm a bit like, okay, fair enough. But yeah, mate, overall, I think optimistic side of me, 1-1. Why not?
Why not? Well, I think given the form you're in, I don't think a point would be a horrendous result for Sunderland, but we'll see. I'm not massive on making predictions, but then, I do think if I sat down and you weren't sat next to us telling us how good Leeds were, I might be sitting there going, I think Sunderland are going to win, but we'll see, mate.
It could be that. Final question. Do you hate Leeds as a Sunderland fan or not?
Nah, there's no hatred there. Although we do sing a song where we say we hate Leeds, but I think it's just it's from going back to the 70s or something like that. But yeah, no, I think just given the fact we beat Leeds in the 73 Cup final has, I think, kind of washed over people to the point where people probably hate Leeds, but there's no reason to hate Leeds, really. No, I don't hate Leeds, mate. No.
Oh, that's good.
And you clearly don't hate Sunderland, or you wouldn't know so much about them. So,
no.
Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Just remind people where they can hear your stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, well, you're gonna see the video of this if you want to see a fine gentleman here on visual, because I know he does audio all the time. So so One Leeds, which you can find out on YouTube and all that sort of good stuff. But if you want to hear me extensively talk about Sunderland in quite glowing fashion as well, you can find me on Conor McGilligan, which is my other secondary YouTube channel. So I appreciate that.
Brilliant. Well, we'll make sure we catch up again later in the season, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, and thank you to the listeners. Tomorrow we will have our match day preview with a few of the lads. I might be on that one, I'm not too sure. And then obviously the reaction pod from the pub after the game, hopefully talking about the Sunderland win, but don't let Connor hear me say that. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later.
The high-octane phenomenon, Sisu Road to Revenge, comes home with a bang. It's an insane ride and an adrenaline-filled action epic. Critics are raving with an explosive 96% score and certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, saying it's the action spectacular of the year, with some of the craziest fight set pieces ever put to screen. Don't miss the ultimate adventure. Get it now on Prime Video, Apple TV, or Fandango at home. Rated R.